Y'all, listen, if there is one thing I've learned, adversity does not build character. Adversity reveals character. I'm Barbie Bassett, and I invite you to join me and my friends, Therese, Apel, and Traci Lee, as we peel back those adversity layers to see what else is revealed. Well, y'all, listen here. We are back, and we are here for a new year.
Yeah.
Hard to believe that we're here. And guess what? We have a title sponsor today.
This is exciting.
This is really exciting. I hope you've cued the hand claps. Please have that.
Okay.
Please have that ready for us, Daniel. Because if you are struggling through your next level, we've got someone who can help you with that. For 20 years, certified life, health, and high performance coach, Amy Ramsey. She has brought unstoppable energy and, of course, proven expertise to help people create a lasting transformation in their life. She's got a neuroscience-backed approach which delivers clarity, focus, and real results. So if you are stuck in your personal life, if you are stuck in your business career, if you are stuck perhaps in your relationships, if you're ready to level up, you have got to book your free clarity call today, thefitsoul.com/book, because in 2025, your breakthrough is waiting. So thank you, Amy, for being a title sponsor here of Y'all Listen Here.
I'm going to have to call Amy.
I know. I think we all need to call Amy.
Right?
Yeah.
We sure.
What a way to start off the new year. I've got my good friends, Therese Apel, here with Dark Horse Press. She is sporting the red, which we're glad to have Therese wearing the red. Therese, you look lovely again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. It's just cold outside today.
We are kind of in that season
Yeah.
where you start off wearing a coat and then you take the coat off. You're shedding layers at this point. But welcome to Mississippi, by the way.
Right.
Because that's just what we deal with. And of course, then we've got our other friend, Traci Lee, with US 96.3.
Yes.
Traci, when Traci walked in the studio today, I'm like, she is still celebrating 2025 because she's sporting the black and the gold today.
I am. Yeah. Since I slept through most of New Year's, maybe I'll just celebrate throughout the week.
I think
So
we need
there
to
you
hand
go.
you some sparklers because it would go well with
Sparklers,
your...
I meant to wear sparkly earrings, and I just ran out this morning. Oops, and forgot. And I'm like, well,
Well,
forget
guess
all
what,
of it.
girl?
Yeah, I
Guess
know,
what?
I
I'm
know.
all
You got
to
us covered.
share my sparkles with you.
Let me just also point out, though, Tracy, and remember, Tracy's an Ole Miss girl, and I'm wearing Ole Miss colors today. I
That
went
is.
to
What's
Ole
up
Miss.
with that?
That is.
But she is she's wearing Vanderbilt colors.
Oh,
That's
black
because
and
I
gold.
support my friend.
Vandy.
They're one of the few SEC teams that won their bowl game.
Fair enough.
You know who you
Okay.
are.
Right.
Okay.
The rest of you. Shame.
Shots fired on
Yeah.
that one.
Shame.
I can only say that because we won.
And we couldn't do this show without our man of the hour,
Yes.
Daniel Anderson, here with Audio
Absolutely.
Alchemy Productions. He is the one who handles all of our audio, our streaming. He makes us look and sound good. So if you're one of those thinking that you want to kind of dive off into the podcast world, Daniel's your guy. Do you need a hand clap today, Daniel, for your
Daniel,
I mean, go
hand clap.
ahead.
You guys being here is hand clap
Oh,
enough.
that's such crap. You You look good though. Like
You do look
You
good,
look
Daniel.
like you've slimmed up a little and maybe gotten a little buff.
Oh, well.
Oh, Ozempic.
You are too funny. Too funny. Wow. Here we are with a new year, but I thought it would be good if we just kind of take a look back. That's why I've
Yeah.
always heard that the rear view mirror is smaller than the windshield. So you can take a look back, but you don't have to concentrate on the rear view. And I know that we've all gone through the year of 2024, but as we look for 2025, I'm sure you have, as well as you, Traci, have been really seeking the Holy Spirit in what do we need to concentrate on for the upcoming year? But I do want to kind of take a step back in 2024. What was something that you learned, or what did the Lord tell you to work on in 2024 that maybe you did accomplish or that you didn't accomplish, and maybe you're gonna pivot that this year?
Oh gosh, I get to start, huh?
You get to start.
So most of my learning honestly came in the last month or so. It's amazing the clarity that comes to you when you lose all your parents. Not just, I'd been through the death of my mom, but losing my dad, all of a sudden everything is very simple. It boils everything down. And there are certain behaviors you just aren't going to accept from people anymore. And there are certain things that are just not important to you anymore. And there are ways of dealing with things that suddenly you're like, why haven't I been doing it like this? It's almost like it boils you down to the actual element that you're made of. And to me, there's just been so much. This year was such a year of struggle for me on a whole lot of levels, and God always provided an answer. So that, that strengthened my faith. But then this last part of the year, and still going through all the different things, finding out about how to deal with the taxes and how to deal with all the different pieces that come along with this phase of my life. But I tell you what, it's my sister and I were talking about, there's just such a difference in who you are and who you become and the strength that you have when you realize like there's no shield, there's no umbrella anymore. And so that's really kind of where I'm coming from at this point. I learned a lot of lessons last year, but I mean, the biggest, loudest one has been in the last 30 days or so.
So interesting. And revelatory too, at the same time.
Definitely.
Would you have gone back and have done, I mean, if you had the chance to have a do-over for 2024, would you?
Knowing what I know now, if I could go through 2024 with the lens that I have now, understanding it's weird. I mean, people who haven't lost all their parents, I'm not saying like y'all would not know, but people who have lost all your parents, I bet you know what I'm talking about. If I could go back, man, there are people I would have cut off in January. One particular person in my life pitched a little temper tantrum at me the same week my dad died because he was angry about something really petty. And it was like, instead of trying to figure out how to make him feel better about it, instead of apologizing, whatever like that, I was like, you know what? That's about the dumbest thing I've heard all day. Done. Just, I'm not doing it. If I had that ability to go back and apply the real no BS filter that I have right now to all the relationships, all the dealings that I've had, even all the decisions I've had to make, I would redo it. But that said, I'm also one of these people that believes like you walk through what you walk through for a purpose.
Right.
So, that being a hypothetical, sure. In real life, if I had to make that choice now, we're here for a reason,
That's so good. What about you, Tracy?
2024 for me, I was thinking about this because I knew we were going to be talking about this. I think along the same lines that Therese was saying, but not to the same degree, it would probably have to be loss. I started 2024, and first of all, understand I'm not a parent. Like, I'm not married. I don't have those type of relationships in my life when it comes to loving something or understanding that whole dynamic. But I'm a dog person, and I've always had dogs. 2024 started off, I mean, a year ago today, I think, is when we lost Yogi, who was my dad's dog. And Yogi was such an empathetic dog. Like he was, whenever I was upset or anything, Yogi was my buddy. Like he knew, he just wanted to be right there. And then, it was one after another throughout the year of 2024. 3 friends that I had passed away with cancer. Chris Chicago, who was probably one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life. He did Hype Radio Network. I worked with him when I worked in Christian radio. He fought long and hard against cancer. He had 3 kids that he left here. His wife, Jessica, they were just very dear to me. And when Chris passed away, that was a huge loss. And to lose people that I worshiped with, Chalmers Davis played piano at Broadmoor, and he also played with Little Richard, and he was a local guy. And when Chalmers played, it was like transcendent, and being able to sing with him playing that instrument, it was very special to me. You create a bond when you're in a band or a praise team or you worship together. There's just this understanding that you have. And losing Chalmers was a big deal. A good friend of my dad's, Robert Love, was killed in a car wreck on Halloween.
That was just
And
recent, yeah.
is just recent. And he was like my father. When I went to the funeral home, when I saw his daughter is when I lost it, because Whitney is like me.
Mm-hmm.
He was a fireman. So, firemen, we have this community. I have several fathers, father figures that are looking out for us. And Stump was one of those guys. Robert Love is his name, firemen, we all have nicknames. And then I lost a friend in North Carolina who was working with his radio networks, another Christian radio guy, Rob Dempsey. He's a great guy, great leader. He passed away due to cancer. And then just last week, lost another friend to cancer. And Teresa was one of those people, when she walked in the room, everybody loved her. You automatically loved her. You were a better person for knowing her. And losing her, then losing Bryn, then almost losing my dad, and starting out in 2024 with my mom with her knee surgery, and now she just had her hip replaced on Monday. It has been such a year of loss, but I don't mean that in a negative way. It has been unbelievably painful and hurt. And I think it's almost to the point where you get to a situation and you're like, come at me, It's just like, okay, all right, what next? And I don't want to say you get numb to it, but you get very accustomed to turning it off. And Therese and I were talking about this earlier today, that we just kind of have a tendency to slip into a place where you can't hurt me anymore because I'm not giving you access to anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I had so many consecutive hits this year, and I turned off so efficiently. I also turned off from people who love me, from relationships, from friends, from God. I just didn't want it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you wake up and you find yourself in this place. And you're like, well, this is not where I wanted to be, So going into the new year, I don't know what that looks like. Like, I know we talked about want to have a word and want to move forward. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I think so many of us, though, are stuck in that.
Yeah.
Like we want to know what's next, and we don't know what's next. Thank you, by the way, for sharing so transparently.
I feel like that was
Always.
a lot. Like, that was a lot
and
of
it's such a
stuff.
blessing.
Well,
always.
I've been getting comments. I know that y'all have been getting comments as well from listeners and watchers here to the podcast, because we are doing this live. And if you're not watching this live, then you're seeing the replay of people who feel like they are relating so much to you, Traci, because of what you're sharing. So thank you for being so open with that.
Yeah. And I think sometimes I forget. I mean, I do this for a living. I have a microphone in front of me, so it's invisible to me. And sometimes I forget that there are other people listening, because I'm just with my friends, just like when I'm with Nate and Hannah or whatever. Like, I forget there's a microphone there, and there's more things. So so I guess I apologize a little bit for being too,
No, do
a
not.
little
not.
bit.
Nope, we're
Just
not
because
apologizing.
I forget that I'm not with just my friends. And I guess I am. If you're listening, we can be besties.
We're all
So,
best friends.
You're authentic.
Yeah.
And we love you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thanks.
But you bring up a point that for me was all of 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was, I went into 2024 feeling like the Lord wanted me to concentrate on being obedient.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is it was all from the standpoint of doing the last thing that God told me to do. But like you just said, Traci, so many times we want to move forward, or we want to do this, or gosh, darn it doesn't seem like anything is changing in our situation. And we become so frustrated that so many times we can get out ahead of the Lord, and we don't go back to doing the thing that he last told you to do. And really all of that equals obedience, because we do want our pain to go away. We do want our sadness to go away. We're ready to see a breakthrough in whatever area that is of our life. But I really focused on Psalm 33:15, which talks about how the Lord protects those who obey him.
Yes, he does.
And so all through 2024, I've had to consistently remind myself, stop trying to get ahead of the Lord and just do the last thing he told you to do. Whether that was in my relationships, whether that was in my situation,
Mm-hmm.
just stick with the last thing that he told you to do. And I've had opportunities throughout the year to remind my own kids of that when they've, well, what comes next, or what do you think I need to do now? Go back and do what he last told you to do. Because we're all humans. We all want the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're in this microwave society. So that's what I've had to deal with in all of 2024 is being obedient to the last thing that he told me to do. And in that last thing that he told me to do, that comes with a price.
Yep.
Comes with a price. So we're always eager to see your comments. Drive Your Line Cart Sport said, looking forward to an incredible 25.
That's our friend Christy.
That's our friend Christy. Yes. And of course, it would be sad to say we're looking forward to a really crummy 2025. Have we ever
Yeah.
heard anybody say that
No.
before?
No, not at all.
No.
Mm-mm.
Because a new year brings new beginnings and new opportunities and new ways of doing things. So now that we've all kind of gone back and taken the rear view mirror look of what we went through in 2024 and what the Lord told us to concentrate on and the things that the Lord is telling us to leave at his feet. Because I think a lot of these things that we've all gone through,
Mm-hmm.
we've had to leave there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for type A personalities, that's not easy to leave there and trust that he's got it.
Absolutely. So I'm going to talk about a thing that Traci, you and I talked about this morning. And this time I'll make it a lot shorter because there won't be 25 people walking in with different things.
Oh.
It was like we were having the most serious conversation
Yeah.
this morning, like both of us, big giant tears in our eyes, and people are like walking in like, hey, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And we're both like, it's fine. And we're fine. But one of the things that I'd kind of really had been getting to me, I had my therapist appointment yesterday.
Mhm.
And one of the things that have been getting to me is my dad. First of all, he lived his whole life. He was in great shape, like worked out every day. When he was assigned to a special forces unit as a chaplain, so he was not a special forces trained guy. He was because he was with the unit, but he was beating at age like 35, 37. He was beating all these 22, 23-year-old guys at the fitness competitions.
Wow.
So great shape his entire life. He was a man of great integrity. When you talk about his personality, there wasn't much you could say bad about him, except for when he was young, he was kind of cocky. And when he got older, he was a little bit gruff because a prosecutor deals with a lot of ugly things. And so he had that kind of damage. But when it came to integrity or kindness or God's love or any of that, he did it all right. He spent his whole life doing everything right. But his body failed him, and he ended up with Parkinson's and Lewy body dementia. And then my mom died, and then he's all by himself, and he's in a nursing home. And then I moved into Mississippi. And it would seem, looking at this story, that it ends really sadly, and he dies alone in a nursing home, far from home. And I was really just sitting there with my therapist, and I was like, I know what the ultimate meaning of everything is. I do. And I know that everything that happens here matters into eternity. But how do I justify the way I'm trying to live my life if none of it matters?
Mhm.
Like, if it still ends... I've worked my whole life, like if you're my dad, you work your whole life to stay in great shape and your body still just, doesn't stick there. Or if you've spent your whole life doing good for people and then his turnout at his funeral was really disappointing as far as I was concerned. Like, where are all the people he helped? Who are you people? Where are you?
Mm.
And so I was really down about it. And what my therapist said that was very important, he said, what we do here, everyone in about our age hits, I'm not going to say what age that is, but we all hit this moment of consternation. What does this mean then?
Mhm.
Then what is the meaning? And he said, well, what we do has the meaning that we assign to it. So when you're looking at your life, if you're doing something that you can assign no meaning to, trade it for something that means something. And ultimately, you know, when I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, well, what means anything to me? I have to stop and say, God, what does it mean to you?
Yeah.
Because as I was sitting there after we had that conversation, I was thinking, gosh, here I am bragging on my dad, but look at Jesus. You know, that's a tragic ending until you get to Sunday,
Yeah.
you know? And I mean, gosh knows we wake up in heaven, you know. So there's so much to me that I'm reevaluating going into 2025, just thinking like, but what does this mean? And is this something I want to assign meaning to, given that, okay, I've learned that what we do here, I mean, what we do that helps others or that makes other people feel better or that makes the world a better place is all that matters.
That is so good. Well, Jan just commented that for her in 2024 was a land of green pastures and still waters, learning to be still and content and to wait on the Lord and to listen and to discern his voice. She says she loves us and our beautiful spirits. Thank you, Jan. You are precious
We love you too, Jan.
to me. Yeah. So thank you for that. But that is always a great, what I'd call an evergreen reminder to just be still and know, because that's what he tells us to do. I think about, and I know both of you are not mothers from, a standpoint where you get to see your children. And the last thing that you want to see as a parent is see your kids anxious and upset and crying and asking for mercy all of the time. You love to see your children at peace and getting along with each other and loving you as a parent. You love to see that. It does not bring you joy to see your kids upset and worried. So I can only imagine how God feels when we are constantly not resting in him, to Jan's point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think consciously talking about, looking back at the year and what God has done, I think when I try to do anything, I'm like, how is this reflecting on him? Am I bringing him glory from this? Because isn't that what we're supposed to do? Isn't that the reason that we're here?
Yes.
It's just to bring glory to him and to try to spread what he did and what he still does. And make no mistake, you talk about leaving things at the feet of Jesus. Sometimes I just curl up right there with them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a loophole. I don't have to. I can leave it at your feet all day long, but I'm gonna stay with it for a minute. And this is one of those times where his patience is so evident. He's so patient with us, and he's so good. He's so good, and I know that. But when there is no light at the end of the tunnel, when you're not by the green pastures, I have to verbally remind myself that he is good, because everything in me tells me it is not good. Not, I won't go as far to say he is not good, but the voices get real loud and they're like, nothing is good right now. You are lost. You did this.
Mm-hmm.
You're the one that put yourself in this position. You stopped going to church. You stopped having community with people. You're the one who walked away from the giftings that God gave you. This is your fault and your punishment. And God is so fast to remind me, and not with words. He speaks. Don't get me wrong. God will speak, and he speaks through his word. Sometimes he speaks through an audible voice, but sometimes his presence is all the speaking that you need, because he will stand there and he will comfort me and put his hand on me and wait for me to turn around and face him. He will wait constantly. I'm never out of arm's length. I know that. I know I'm not, because he is a good father.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very good father. But I think it looks different. I think we have an idea in our mind about what we have to do and the power that we have. And I have to really pray hard against not trying to manipulate God with my prayers or talking about situations. I'm not, well, who am I to do that? I can't manipulate God. And I don't want to think, because I'm a wordsmith, it's what I do for a living, that I can't put it in such a way that my eloquent speech is not going to move God to do something. He is God. He is going to do what he needs to do, but he is good. always good. And he's so patient and he waits so patiently and sometimes so silently for you to get to the end of yourself and for you to decide what you're going to listen to and tell the voices to be quiet, tell yourself to be quiet, and to press into who he is and what he is. And remember what you're supposed to be doing here, and that is to bring him glory. And he gives you opportunities to do that.
And for us to remind ourselves that if it concerns us, it concerns him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because so many times we think that we're in our own little land, isolated, that we must be the only one dealing with this, or we must be the only one worried or anxious about this. And just a good reminder that if it concerns our heart, it concerns his. Judy's saying, bring glory to God. He's the one who matters in the end. Look for the light. He is there. And when you're in that dark tunnel, it is hard to see the light that is straight ahead.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that's been just a real blessing of this season that I'm coming through is that I hit a point where, I mean, I was exhausted. I was so tired because Dad was so sick right there at the end. And then it was like when we lost him, you go through a moment of just like numbness. But what God has done, it's almost like he just came up and he just scooped me up and he's been holding me since then. And there's this feeling of overwhelming gratitude that I just can't shake. It's like, yes, there is sadness. And it's not just losing, like when you lose your last parent, it's not just losing another parent. You re-lose the first one because all of
Yeah.
a sudden it's all gone.
Yeah.
Your whole
Yeah.
childhood is gone. And but it's interesting because I can't think about that without thinking how grateful I am for the people that my parents were.
Yes.
And the other day I was sitting there thinking, and this is such a funny illustration, but there was a thing on Facebook and a person was making fun of another person's post. And so they had screenshotted the post and put it up there. The screenshotted post said, one of my friends is a pregnant pug and she's having a hard time with her pregnancy. So I just keep trying to cheer her up and remind her there are other dogs living inside you. And so I read it and I thought that was funny too. And I focused on one of my friends is a pregnant pug because I wouldn't say one of my friends is a pregnant pug. I'd say one of my dogs is pregnant.
Right.
But all of a sudden I was like, you know what? One of my friends is a 3-legged pit bull and one of my friends is a little fuzzy mop dog. And then that translated into all the friends that I have, friends of all different kinds, that on the nights that I sit there and I'm all like, oh my gosh, I'm so alone because nobody knows how to read my mind and call me and say, I feel like you're feeling alone, you know, and I'll sit there and instead of reaching out, I'll just feel bad for myself. But in this phase of my life, especially for some reason, the pregnant pug friend just really drove it home to me. I could pick up my phone on those lonely nights and I could call someone of any kind. If you said to me, call a garbage man, well, there's one in here. Call someone who likes to knit, well, there's one in here, you know? And when you're surrounded by that many people and that much love, when you really break it down, how many people are you friendly with? How many people could you call up and ask a favor? How many people do you do kind things for just for the fun of doing it, just to see them smile? That's love. And you're surrounded by that much love every day. Everyone you come into contact with is someone that you don't even realize that you love.
That's true.
And so in that sadness, in that aloneness, in that fear of loving, you're already in it, Tracy.
I'm
You're
gonna be honest.
already in it.
I don't want to be.
I
You
know,
like
I
I don't
know.
want to. I don't want to. And I know what you're saying is right. But there comes, I think if we're being real about this whole situation, there are times I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with people. I don't want to deal with the extra added, I got to get myself together and entertain somebody or put my makeup on and go out with somebody. I don't want to.
You don't have to.
I don't want to. I don't want to pick up my phone and call somebody, and I'm not going to answer if you call me. You know, and I think that I've never been that person that's always done that. I've always been, let's go, let's do this. It's my job. I don't want to. I don't want to anymore. And that is a whole new place to be. How do you deal with that?
Yeah.
When you're in the public eye and you never get to turn off.
I call it peopling.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just don't want to people, or I'm not doing well at peopling.
No, at all. And I think if anything, I'm going to start cutting myself some slack for not wanting to do it and for taking that moment and just being like, I need a minute to breathe.
Yes.
I just need a minute. And I don't think there's anything wrong. I think sometimes as women, we penalize ourselves and feel guilty because we can't be that mom all the time that's making the organic fruit snacks for her kid.
Mm-hmm.
Who does that? You know, or does it? You can't do that. That's not for everybody. Okay, it's your week to bring snacks. Gummy bears are fun. You know, you just don't have to do that. Cutting yourself some slack. When I knew we were going to kind of be talking about this today, I mentioned it to a dear friend of mine and also my boss, Kelly, at work. And she said, I don't know, what is your word for the year? Because we kind of talked about that. And I said, I don't know, maybe faith. I don't know. It was Sunday school answer. And she said, I think your word for the year needs to be me. Because she said, I feel like you take care of so many people and do so many things that you're not taking care of you.
Yes.
And if you're not taking care of you, you can't be the best you for everybody else.
Ooh.
Why is there so much guilt in that to say that I need to take care of myself? And I mean, because immediately I'll have a million Bible verses and scriptures that pop in my head, or lessons that you've learned about how you've always got to put yourself last. You always have to do this. How do you balance that? As a believer, how do you balance that? How do you balance taking care of yourself, saying no, which Lisa Turkhurst has a great book called The Best Yes. But how do you do that and live in a society that's going to guilt you into or voluntold you into a situation, especially at church? Nobody else is signing up. Can you do this? I don't want to. I'm tired. I need to take the 5 minutes and spend to myself. How do you do that?
Jesus did it all the time.
Yeah,
He went into the woods for 40
Yeah.
days. He was like, get me a boat, get me away from these people. Like, Jesus was big on personal space. And that's the thing that we are not good at, because on top of that obligation that we have as Christians to be selfless. And the thing is, there's so much about being selfless that, yes, that's a Christian thing, but it's also a trauma thing. It's also a people-pleasing thing. There's a
Yes.
lot of things about being selfless that are toxic. And you need to rule those things out, but how do you separate that? That's the question. But I think this is part of what I don't think you and I have talked about this at work, but one of the things that my therapist has told me over and over again is that this year it's kind of the same thing. He said, I need you to start thinking about yourself before you think of other people, simply because you have got to have enough left in you to go on. So as I talked about some of the things I'm feeling guilty or hard on myself for, I've been so caught up in stress and things like that I've gained way more weight than I thought that I even could in the last year, just being in the middle of everything. And so I beat myself up over that because, like I said, I come from a family where fitness is a thing. And all of a sudden I realized my word is grace, because what we have to be able to do is forgive ourselves. You know, it is, I can't do all these things for all these people. I've got to let myself be like, you know what? I hate to say it, because I have always said that my one dream in the world is to save the world, go out in a blaze of glory doing it. I can't. I'm about this big. In the grand scheme of things, I am no bigger than that grain of sand. I can't do anything more than what God gives me to do. And so I need to give myself grace for being only human. And you know what? That is how you do it. When people come at you with 25 things they want you to help with, I can't. Get me a boat. Get me away from these people. I'm going to the wilderness for 40 days.
Wow. I'm hearing from both of you a little term, and this is literally coming to me: grace for my space.
Oh, that's good.
Grace for my space. Judy's saying she likes that word, me. Take time for yourself. And even Nancy was talking about what a difficult year that 24 has been, with broken bones and having limited mobility in life, which has made her focus more on God. So this is all so good. And we have to say a big thank you to one of our sponsors who is making this conversation that we're having possible, and that is Complete Exteriors. Now, if you live here in Mississippi, you know that last week we had a little storm that came through, and Complete Exteriors, they are the ones to call. So when you've got roof leaks or roof damage caused by storm or debris, Complete Exteriors needs to be your very first call. You can even call them while the storm is going on, because they do have phones that are manned 24/7. And this is more than just a roofing contractor company, okay? They're members of our communities. They are established or were established back in 2007. They are your hometown roofing contractor, complete exteriors for all of your residential and your commercial roofing issues. Give them a call today. Their phone number 601-326-2755, or you can visit their website, completeexteriorsms.com. Mississippi is not finished with its severe weather season. We actually have two severe weather seasons. We have one in the spring, and then we have one at the end of the year, starting into the new year. And of course, we are right here. So
Yeah.
give them a call. We want to thank them in a big way for making this whole conversation possible for us to have.
Absolutely.
So now that we've talked about 2024, it's time to look forward to the year that we're currently in. And that is, what do you think that the Lord is showing you this year?
Like I said, I'm just going to focus on, I mean, and it sounds funny, but the love around me. I know that sounds so cheesy and it sounds so Hallmark and all that, but, you know, I've experienced a lot of loss in my life. You know, like you were talking about, Tracy, it's like one thing after another. And I mean, like guys that I've dated and best friends. And I mean, I can go through a list of people. All the closest people to me in my life at one point had died off, and I had nobody that I could just talk to until y'all. I mean, until this here, there was nobody I could just open my soul to. And in the loss of my dad, that revelation that, I mean, that love that God has given us is in every breath of life, whether it's the flowers, whether it's the trees. I'm turning into some kind of a hippie as I'm saying this. But I mean, everything he's given us is all around. And it is hard to remember. I mean, there are days that you just sit there and you're like, if you love me so much, God, could you quit sending me trees and maybe send me like $500 so I could pay my electric bill?
Yeah.
Or, you know, maybe instead of like my dog friend, could you send me an actual friend or maybe a boyfriend? Like, I get that all that comes in, and I know that I'll come off this high at some point, which it's a weird thing to say. There's a high associated with this kind of grief. But I do believe that God, in your lowest points, whether you know it or not, he's right there holding
Yes.
you. And
Always.
I really want this year to be the year that I acknowledge those arms around me instead of fighting against them, which I'm so prone to do. I'm so prone to think that I can fix it. And I may tell you all day, I'm waiting on God to fix it. He's got this, don't worry. But you know what? Like, I'm always trying to fix it.
Yes.
You know, that's always going on.
Or giving him suggestions.
Yeah.
That's my
Want
favorite
to help
thing.
him out a
I'm
little
like,
bit.
hey, have you thought about this?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like, sometimes I feel like he's looking, he's like, did you hear what this child just said?
Let me give you a tip, Lord.
I know. He's just like, my gosh. So,
Well, what are you thinking about this year? What's coming to your mind now that we know that it's grace for my space?
I think making decisions, I'm such a people pleaser. I'm very much a people pleaser. And also being in a leadership position, you can't be both. You know, but I like to protect the people that are under me, but I also have to make the best decision for what I'm leading. And sometimes those things don't match up.
Yeah.
And I just have to do what God has called me to do and put me in a position to do whatever that looks like. And I think making those decisions, knowing that somebody might get hurt or their feelings might get hurt or they might feel like they're being overlooked. I think something that you don't know about leaders and people that are in those decision-making positions, we go home and agonize over that. We cry. I do. And I think of a million ways that I can make it work to your benefit and still do what I'm being paid to do. And sometimes you can't. And I think instead of expecting moving forward into the next year, expecting them to just understand how agonizing that position can be for somebody in leadership is just giving them the space to be how they need to be without taking it on personally and realizing that we have to do this because, you know, I have a job to do. We got to grow. We got to do, you know, certain things. And sometimes those decisions stink. And that can even be in your personal life too. You know,
give them grace
sometimes
for their space too.
Right. Because sometimes you gotta do it. I don't know. I don't know. Looking forward to 2025. I've never been so excited for a new year to get here. I know that. Like it's some magical thing happens when the clock strikes midnight and it's January 1st. But it's like I finally was able to breathe a little bit. And I'm like, whew, this year's done. Now let's move on to 2025. And, you know, Therese, you were talking about earlier when you lost your dad, there's these emotions that come with it. And there's a song that Stephen Curtis Chapman has called With Hope. And it's like we can say goodbye with hope. We can grieve with hope because we know that this is not the end. And there's something so, I don't want to say comforting in the loss, but it is.
Yeah.
It's that peace that passes all understanding. I think sometimes we think that means that everything's okay and we're not sad because we're at peace. But I think the peace that passes all understanding with great loss is that it's not the end. You know, that there's an extra, there's more. The reality begins at the end of this life. And I know I experienced that with my grandmother. It was the weirdest thing. She's the most dear person in the world to me. And I lost her. We buried her. And then I had to go to Nashville and do CMA week.
Right.
So it wasn't 12 hours after I said goodbye. I'm like, yay, we're in Nashville. And I remember having to put that part of me aside and go to my room, and I would be editing audio. I would stop. I would go cry. I would go back. I would edit audio. I would stop. I would cry, you know, because it's just this process. But there's such, when you lose somebody who is a believer, there's this beautiful, I don't know what the word is, but it's like a transition. It's a peace. It's an understanding that it's not the end.
It's hope.
It's hope. And it's just, it's indescribable. And I don't know how people lose people without hope.
You know, one of the things that I keep telling people that is so interesting to me, because I always knew heaven is home. And, you know, when we go there, we're going home. But all of a sudden, here's where the waterworks starts. Having both your parents there, it feels like
Together.
when it's time to go, I'll be going home for Christmas.
Oh.
It feels like that,
Yeah.
like actually going home, not like this heavenly home we've always heard about,
Yeah.
that like in our little tiny human minds, we paint this picture. It's like, that's where my parents are. And that's where my Jesus is. And that's where, like right now, I'm just away. I'm just away from home. And when that time comes, I'm going home. It's a whole different thing. It looks so different now.
Yeah.
And to me, that is such a blessing that God gives us in the loss of a fellow believer that we love.
Yeah. I've always said the older we get, the more heaven looks like home than earth does.
So true.
That's
Because
true.
we have so many people there. And I can't wait to get there. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't.
So true. Well,
Well,
I'm,
Barbie, you haven't cried yet.
well, I
so-
haven't
Come on,
cried yet,
Barbie.
only because I've cried before I got here.
Come on, Barbie.
You know, what I'm feeling for 2025, and of course, I wrote some things down. I do believe that as we continue to move forward until Jesus comes back, the spiritual warfare is going to continue to increase.
Big time.
Double, triple, quadruple. And what I've been hearing for myself in 2025 is, you know, last year was all about being obedient and doing the last thing that he told you to do. My word this year seems to be stand, because of the spiritual warfare, whether that is standing in my career, whether that's standing in my family,
Yeah.
whether that is standing and protecting my quiet time.
Yeah.
Whatever that standing is, because the verse that was given to me was Psalm 18:35. You give me your shield of victory, and your right hand sustains me. Verse 40 goes down and says, you made my enemies turn their backs in flight and destroyed my foes. They cried for help, but there was no one to save them. The Lord did not answer. And again, the enemies would be those forces, the enemy that tries to take away whatever that is that God has told you to stand for or stand against. Another scripture that I have been looking at is 1 Corinthians 15:57. But thanks be to God, He gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Verse 58 says, therefore, which means coming after. Okay, so after he has given you the victory, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. So I feel like that God is telling me to stand for whatever it is that he has put before me. And on some days, it's going to be standing for that quiet time because we're all being, the phone's going off or we've got the day schedule ahead. It's like the Lord is saying, I want you to stand for me. In the quiet time. I want you to stand for me in its good versus evil, or even if you're the only one standing, if you're the only person standing. So I think in some areas of my life, standing are going to be easier than others.
In Ephesians 6:13, it's one of my favorites, and it goes along exactly with what you're talking about. I just cut the picture so that I can read it in big words because we're getting old here. But it's the armor of God.
Yes.
Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything to stand. And whether you're talking about, standing to give yourself space, or standing in a situation of spiritual warfare or whatever, it says to put on your armor. And you do that through prayer and through Bible study and through Christian fellowship. And then once you have done everything, then stand
still.
And that's where I think I know there's another verse where God basically says, then be still, because that's where he takes over.
And he's got a track record of doing that. He has fought for his children from Genesis 1. I mean, he has fought for us and will continue to do. And that's the thing I think that we forget, that God doesn't change. We do. We pivot. We do things all the time. And trying to put those human characteristics on a God that doesn't act human, I think is a disservice to who he is, because he is constant and will constantly fight for us. And it doesn't look like we do. I'm all about opening up the earth and swallowing up another 3,000 people.
Right. Yes.
But thank goodness he is not, he doesn't fight the way that I want him to fight, because I've been wrong about people before that would have been hurt. And he's so just and he's so good. And there was a point in time in my life when you were talking about that I was doing something that I knew that I shouldn't be doing. And I was so broken in my sin, but I've never felt like God ran to me faster.
Oh yeah.
Ever. And that, I know that sounds contrary to everything that we think about sin. God hates sin. Boy, does he, but boy, does he love us enough to reach through it and pull us out. And he does, and he did, and he will. It's just who he is.
Well, and I think the truth is he hates sin, but it breaks his heart.
100%.
It's not like when we sin, all of a sudden, like, I hate the phrase, hate the sin, love the sinner.
Yeah.
Because that's still judgmental. I mean, I believe that, if you want to break it down, technically it's true, but I believe that when God sees us fall to that sin, he sees past all the trash that we as humans turn it into, and he loves us in that spot.
He's already loved us in
We
that
are
spot.
forgiven. He has died for us.
Yeah.
And as Christians, we have accepted that. And so to me, we're going to fall. We're going to mess up. We're going to have those sins that separate us so hard from God. But in that is when he leaves the 99.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
Well, knowing that the Lord has been giving y'all the words of this year, 2025, grace for yourselves, grace for my space. And he's given me the word to stand for 2025. I feel sorry for the devil this year.
I don't.
Yes.
I don't ever feel sorry for him. He's a punk. I don't like him.
Because he picked some bad ones to try to pick a
Yeah.
fight with.
Right.
I don't know. You don't pick on little girls that are daddy girls.
That's right.
That is
Daddy
true.
will come get you quick.
Amen to that. Well, I hope that this conversation has maybe spurred you to seek the Lord and search for what he may want you to focus on this year, and what he wants to work on and build and create and mold in your life this year. We all three encourage you to seek his word and seek his heart in that. And we hope that this has also given you a smile to continue your day with. And until then, we will see you again on another episode of Y'all Listen Here.
It's a brand new day.